Now, there's some opponents of death with dignity who say that that is being used improperly, even down in Oregon. That the fact that the people who are theoretically choosing to end their lives are not really choosing, that they are so far beyond that other people are sort of illegally or immorally implementing that decision for them.
Yeah, that's nonsense. I mean, no, that's absolute hogwash. I mean, I think you can look at a lot of people who have diagnosis of say serious liver cancer, right. Who have 8 months left to live. Their brains are working, their bodies are working. In 8 months, they're going to be dead. But they are fully, possessed of all their faculties and can say, well, I want to have the option of this to.
Now, how do we know in 8 months they're going to be dead? We can't predict the weather accurately for tomorrow. And you're going to somebody says, 8 months.
Well, I'm not an oncolologist.
That's right.
But some people do get short diagnoses. I mean, prognoses. Diagnoses
but so many things are wrong in this country.
So many things are wrong?
So many things get
well, no one's going to
called
say
wrong in this country.
I won't say no one, but I think very few people are going to say, I might be dead in 8 months, so I'm going to take the suicide pill. You say, I might be dead in 8 months, I'm going to get the prescription so that when I'm racked with pain, right. then I can take the pill and
what if I
and
have
go
a low
gentle into
threshold
this
for
good
pain?
night. Well, then you really maybe need a prescription right now.
Well, that would not be a good idea.
Oh, jeez.
Let me drink up. Hold on a second.
Sorry. How's everyone doing out there?
That's right.
All right.
They're depressed. They're drinking at 10 in the morning, for goodness sakes.
They wouldn't be here otherwise.
So let's get back to this thing.
Right.
Do we really want to prevent suicide? You know, here's the thing. There are more than twice as many suicides as there are homicides.
Yes, yeah.
And we spend a lot of money on law enforcement.
Right.
And people trying to stop crime.
Right, right.
There's no money put into trying to stop suicide.
Oh, that's not true. There is. There's suicide hotlines. I mean, the famous
that
one
must
actually,
be at least $20 right there. That's a phone bank and a table.
It is a phone bank and a table. It's many tables, actually, several phones.
Anne Rule.
Anne Rule and Ted Bundy, actually.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Working together.
They're together, side by side, at the suicide prevention hotline.
Does anybody have tapes of those conversations? Because I have to believe that Ted was not encouraging people. Or he was encouraging people, as it were.
I don't know what to say about that.
Come on,
Ted Bundy
Ted Bundy doing on the suicide hotline?
I know.
It's a good idea.
It's the way.
I could take care of that for you.
What's your address? God, we're terrible people. I'm a terrible person.
People know that.
I think that we want to prevent some suicides. Not necessarily all. Obviously, we just passed the Death with Dignity Act by a pretty large margin. So the state does not believe that no one should have access to. I mean, the fact is, everyone has access to suicide. Anyone can do it. Right. It's a matter of, do you want to do it in a way that is relatively safe, clean, and non-traumatic for both family members and, passers-by.
So it should be like elephants. Go separate yourself from the herd, go off into the forest, and as long as you're not...
Or be surrounded by your loved ones who can hold your hand as you take the pills and go gentle.
Like home birth or something
like
that?
Yeah, it is kind of home death.
Now, I have heard people talk about that there should be midwives or doulas for that sort of thing.
And I think they're right. I mean, I think hospice care is moving more and more in that direction, where they're starting to look more at, like, how do we make people comfortable, what kind of environment do they want to be in, we'll have them at home, we'll have them in their own beds, that kind of thing. I mean, there's the clinic in Switzerland, the Dignitas folks who've been doing this for a while. Actually, it was a huge scandal with those guys recently because they apparently illegally dumped a bunch of urns full of people's ashes into a lake without a permit. And it was, I don't know, they were like police divers looking for something else, and then they found all this stuff. And so now, like, the world's leading sort of death with dignity folks are in the midst of this horrible, undignified scandal because they dumped people's ashes without any kind of permit or permission or anything.
It wasn't death with dignity permanently.
No,
it was temporarily. Momentarily, at the time of your death, it will be dignified, and then.
But then all bets are off.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just jinx, drink.
Oh my God! Oh my God! The show's become a drinking game.
I thought that's what this was.
I like it. Let's do beer pong next. That's fantastic. But I'm still confused because if we want to stop people, we're not really stopping them. You say this thing, like if we're going to build fencing for the Aurora Bridge and screw up the view of the lake.
Well, does it really screw it up all that much? I mean, have you been in any of those houses in Queen Anne?
No. They haven't finished building it yet. I'm not quite sure. But That's not the ultimate way to kill yourself in this country. It is firearms.
Firearms
So
is the most popular
So
way.
why not gun control? Why not $4.6 million on gun control?
I think that that's an excellent idea. I don't think I think it's a matter of scale. I mean, $4.6 million is not going to solve the gun problem in the country, but it can solve the Aurora Bridge problem. It can solve that problem.
That's the problem. It's so reactive rather than
Well, what would you like? I mean, it sounds like you want to pour $4.6 million down a gigantic hole called gun control where it won't do a damn thing, as opposed to addressing a real problem. You just seem cranky. Are you just cranky, Warren?
when you put it that way.
snack?
That's what I have a little
Some
blood sugar.
applesauce in the back.
I didn't have breakfast. That's what it is. If I had had breakfast, no. I actually. The funny thing is that going into this whole thing started because I made a flip comment about suicide.
What was your flip comment?
Is I said I didn't want them building the fencing on the Aurora Bridge because it's going to screw up my views, and you know
Okay.
I'd rather people commit suicide than like kill that part of my commute.
Okay. Where did you say this?
What, on Facebook and Twitter and all those great places. And John Moe, the fabulous John Moe, took me
Yeah.
to task because he has some personal experience with it. And,
Yeah.
and he was right to smack me down. But I did want to be provocative, although I was being a bit of an ass. I admit that. So, and I went back and thought about the subject and started watching a bunch of films about it. And I had negated the idea that other people are truly impacted by this. That it's not just about, to me, saving the person who's committing suicide, but it's also
Right.
about saving the people who are affected by that death.
Right. I mean, of course. I mean, people live within a network of other people. That's undeniable.
So is it ever right? Is it ever okay to kill yourself?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, we just passed the
How
Death
did-
with Dignity Act. There is a case in which it is all right to
but
kill
that's-
yourself.
Right, but that's what the state says. What do you say, Mr. Kiley? What do you say?
What do I say? I think it's perfectly reasonable in some circumstances to kill oneself.
Really?
Yeah.
You would do it?
Well, I mean,
Would you? Can you envision a time when you would do it?
if I say that there are some circumstances in which it is permissible, then I must say that yes, I might find myself in those circumstances someday.
Really?
Yeah, sure.
All right. As a
I think-
hypothetical.
As a hypothetical.
You know, because I really was sort of thinking anybody should be able to go off and do that. And then shortly after posting that comment, a friend of a friend, who's the father of 3 children, committed suicide. And he did it because he had great financial distress, which many people have now. But he left behind a woman who didn't work to take care of those 3 kids. And I think that's totally irresponsible.
That does sound, the way you describe it, does sound irresponsible. I mean, when I say that there are some circumstances in which I think people should be permitted to kill themselves, I think that a circumstance like that is not necessarily a great one. But say you are, you know, a 85-year-old person in great pain, and you know, it's something I was been thinking about for the past few years. That, you know, if the social safety net continues to break down, people are having fewer and fewer children, which means smaller and smaller families. I mean, traditionally you had children to take care of your aging self, as you, you know, and so if the social safety net continues to break down and people have smaller and smaller families, we may have, you know, very, very old sick people in 20 or 30 years who have no one to take care of them. The state can't take care of them. They don't have families to take care of them. I mean, in that case, and that's a possibility. I mean, I think developing a sort of an ethics and best practices of suicide is very important. But we haven't done that as a society. We basically condemned and condemned and condemned, and then we had the Death with Dignity movement, and now there's a little crack in the door. But we haven't really, I mean, apart from a few, you know, John Donne, the poet, David Hume, Borges, there have been a few people in the history of Western civilization who've like really considered suicide and tried to think about what it means and in what ways is it good, what ways is it bad. But we have a real poverty of philosophy on suicide. So some philosophers need to devote themselves to the task of working out some of these ethical issues for us.
So forget the politicians.
Oh, yeah,
forget,
yeah.
Forget the lawmakers. Go
Yeah.
straight to the philosophers
Absolutely. I mean,
who do so much for this country.
They can help us understand ourselves better. I mean, a politician,
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put my life in the hands of a politician. Would you?
Oh,
No, of course not.
I wouldn't.
I might put my life in the hands of a philosopher, though.
You would? Well,
I don't know, maybe.
Good luck finding one.
The right philosopher.
But I think it's interesting that you went to don't try to solve the family problem of taking care of the elders. Just get them a prescription. So you're on notice, Mom.
Well, you can't solve the problem if there's no family. That's the problem.
But they're kids. You're saying there's still like limited family, but somebody could care for them.
Oh, well, what about people who don't have kids? There are plenty of people who don't have kids.
That's right.
who
All
are,
right.
who are
So they
passing,
are-
passing through their fertile years into their infertile years without children.
So okay, that's true. Okay, so maybe it's a glass box in case of great hardship, break glass, and
I like that.
I'd look at it every day. Okay. So, do you have some films or books that you can recommend to people out there?
Yes, I think, well, the documentary The Bridge is a fantastic piece of work because it deals with folks, it deals with it from a lot of different angles, and it interviews the friends and family members of people who've thrown themselves off the Golden Gate Bridge, and some of whom say, I was stricken and it was horrifying. Other people who said, I'd been expecting this to happen for years and years, and it finally happened, and I'm glad that he's at peace. So it really deals with some of the morality of the people that you affect. And
it's strangely mesmerizing.
it is. Well, the bridge itself and the sort of the fog and the San Francisco and the hills and the water. I mean, it's a beautiful place just to look at for an extended period of time. And then when you look at it with this sort of extra ballast of knowing that it's a place where a lot of death happens, obviously that adds a lot of meaning to it. There was a French film. Was it French or French-Canadian? The Barbarian Invasions?
French-Canadian.
French-Canadian, which is there's an excellent film. Came out in the early aughts, like 2002 or something like that.
Early aughts, very nice.
Right?
Thank you.
Thanks. I've been waiting to use that this whole time. About a fellow who's really ill and goes out to. He gathers his friends around him, and he goes to kill himself. I think at a beach house, and with I think it's a morphine overdose or something. And I think there's like a young junkie involved who he contracts to bring the morphine. This is what you have to do before the death with dignity laws, is you have to find someone to give you a morphine overdose.
Befriend a junkie.
Yes,
There you
right. Which is a fine thing to do when you're in the latter days of your life. And The Virgin Suicides, both as a book and a film. Jeffrey Kennedy's novel and Sofia Coppola film. I think it's her best film, really.
I'll take that. 1 out of 3. I'll take it. Yes, I will. Okay, that's good.
I think it's a gorgeous movie. From the sound to the acting to the use of light and color, it's really beautiful. But it also deals with how suicide affects other people. You have these sisters, and they kill themselves, and how does that affect the lives of their family and the other people in the neighborhood, and it's also about sort of suburban anime in a way as well. But it's a gorgeous novel and a gorgeous film.
I think that's really the key that you hit upon there in that movie, and also the film Ballast, which I love, which very few people have seen, is the idea that suicide is certainly impactful for the individual, that's obvious, but also ripples out throughout the community, and that's really something to consider. And so for people out there, I think the big question is to consider what those ramifications are. How do we affect the others in our lives? It is so hard without It's a Wonderful Life and an angel coming down to tell us this is what's going on, that we really need to remember you do have this impact on others.
Right.
So those who feel depressed or suicidal need to seek out those who truly love them and be reminded of that. And those of us who care about individuals who may be a little depressed need to listen a little bit better.
Sounds good.
Fair to say?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Drink
Thank
up.
all y'all.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Cheers.